The last weapon that we have to discuss for the gunner is the Hurricane Guided Rocket Launcher. So, this weapon's unlock assignment is unlocked when you get the gunner to level 20. You get access to this. Now, this gun does take the most practice to get used to. This is probably the highest skill ceiling of all of the weapons. This gun's design is similar to the autocannon. It is a hybrid between a crowd control and a direct damage weapon, like all of his weapons are. Although there is area damage that the minigun doesn't have, which is why it's more of a crowd control weapon than the minigun. I consider the minigun to be more direct. Now, the way the weapon works is that when the individual rounds are fired, you can move your cursor on the screen to aim the rockets while they are in mid-flight until they hit a target or an object in the environment. The individual rockets deal 16 direct damage per shot and 20 in an area around it, 1.4 meter area. It has a magazine size of 36 and a maximum of 282. I am not doing that math off the top of my head, but it's roughly about 6 reloads, 6 to 7 reloads. My math is correct. You fire 3 rockets per second, and it takes 3.5 seconds to reload, which means it is the shortest reload of the 2 primary options. Believe it or not, I actually don't think that reload time is that bad. There is an animation cancel on it that shaves it down to about 2.5 seconds, which is pretty reasonable in my opinion. It's about the same as the burst pistol without a reload modifier on it. In terms of shared modifiers, there's not really any shared modification here. Everything's just unique enough. So for the first tier, we have the obvious choice that DRG loves to do of ammo versus damage versus slightly larger area of effect. That slightly larger area of effect, in my opinion, doesn't matter. Most of the overclock modifiers for this either give large direct damage bonus, large area damage bonus, reduce direct damage, or reduce area damage. That effect radius to me really doesn't matter at all, even though it does bring it to a radius of 2. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You're choosing between damage or ammo. In my opinion, the ammo is what I would take. If you run the damage, it makes it so that your direct damage and your area damage are equal without any extra bonus. However, this is a weapon that deals area damage. So, I'm going to primarily build it for area damage. Now, I want to mention that this is the most accurate long-range weapon at the gunner's disposal currently because of the fact that you can control your rockets in mid-flight. This means you can snipe enemies far across the map as long as you can aim the cursor properly at the enemies. Personally, I just picked the extra ammo. This means with no magazine increase, it gives you 10 reloads. So, a few extra reloads. Tier 2 is actually an interesting choice to have to explain. I am going to completely skip that. We're going to move on to Tier 3. Tier 3 is very simple. Increase rate of fire, or double your magazine size. Doubling the magazine size it gives you a magazine size of 72. Remember that this is an automatic fire weapon. I like to hold down the trigger and just watch a giant stream of missiles come out, versus 1 extra rocket per second. The rate of fire increase, by the way, I don't like because of the fact that it is an automatic fire weapon. You will, and the travel time that the rockets have, you will not want to run that for the sheer fact that you will waste extra ammo on targets. At tier number 4, we have weak spot bonus damage, or we have extra area damage. The weak spot bonus damage gives 50% bonus when a rocket hits a weak spot. This applies to both the area and the direct damage. Here's the issue with this. This does seem like it would make sense because, you know, that's a pretty decent chunk of bonus damage. I prefer the extra area damage because I'm not normally aiming for weak spots. And last up at tier 3 for the mini overclocks, as we call them, or the tier 5, we have a few options here. And in my opinion, none of these are particularly great. So, the first option that we have is the trash one, in my opinion. This is napalm infused rounds. What this does is it takes 33% of the damage dealt, direct or area, and converts it to heat. Now, it says this will reduce direct damage. But it also reduces area damage as well. It just simply doesn't convert it to heat. It only converts the direct damage. This means that 3 shots hit, they automatically set a target on fire. Here's the issue with that, though. I want to kill a target in 3 hits, not set it on fire. That's only good for Praetorians. And if that's the case, we're going to go back to Tier 2 for that. I genuinely hate this because it reduces your overall damage. And even if you were to take the pressurized gas cylinder, it would be pretty bad because the pressurized gas cylinder only gives you 4 damage back. So it's not a significant enough increase in my opinion. If it increased your damage up to 6, then I would consider it. Now the other 2 is really a choice between slightly more inconsistent bonus damage or crowd control. Again, this is going to decide between if you play on lower hazard or higher hazard. Lower hazard players should probably take the nitroglycerin. Higher hazard players should probably take uncontrolled decompression. Uncontrolled decompression is a modifier, so that each impact, this does not have to be a direct hit, much like the fear on the autocannon, it will have a 25% chance to stun a target for 3 seconds. It has the same area of effect as your effect radius. This is a nice crowd control option, especially for slowing down targets at range. Personally, in my opinion, it is the weakest of the crowd control type options of the 2. The Autocannon Sphere will cause enemies, it's a 50% chance to run 10 meters away. They will stop whatever they're doing and run 10 meters in a straight line away. If you run the minigun, that is a 40% chance to stun, which is more. And while the duration may be shorter, that modifier, in my opinion, is better because you have a much higher rate of fire and a much higher ammo capacity. So you're going to be doing a lot more stuns than this. I'm not a big fan of the stun on this. I just don't think it's impactful enough. So that leaves Nitroglycerin Compound. What this does is, the longer the rockets stay in the air, the more damage that they will do. Now, what this does is it increases your damage by 1 per second that you keep it in the air. Realistically, you're only going to get a bonus 1 or 2 damage. This applies to direct damage only, not area damage. It is not mentioned there. I do feel the need to say this. This means that on this build that I currently have set up, you would have to keep the rockets in air for 6 seconds for the direct damage to match the area damage. I mean, that obviously can be offset by running this, and you'll have to keep it in the air for 4 seconds. This is primarily what I run just because it helps you kill things a little bit faster. If you are using this as a long-range sniping option at maximum range, this is very good. For one thing, this will allow you to just outright kill acid spitters and web spitters if you shoot them from a far enough range, if you're shooting something like a spitball infector, or if you're just shooting at a group of enemies far away. The extra damage on this actually does come in handy for giving you bonus range. Now, I left the Tier 2 modifier because this is probably the toughest choice in the entire gunner arsenal to make if you decide on using the Hurricane as your weapon of choice. You have the projectile modifier, or you have the armor break. Now, there is no penetrator modifier for this. That's in an overclock. And the stun one, as we know, is already in a different tier. So armor break, what this does is it gives you a bonus 100% armor break. But here's the thing. The gun already has 100% armor break in it. And remember, that is area damage as well. So that's pretty good. It's not mentioned that it has a bonus 100% armor break, but it is there. Generally, I run the bigger jet engine. What this does is it gives you 100% turn rate speed, and it increases the projectile speed by 33%. This means that your individual rockets, you will have better control over. They travel faster, and they hit harder. Now, it seems contradictory to run the Nitroglycerin Compound because the projectile speed is increased, so they hit their targets slightly faster. However, the turning radius gives you the ability to turn your rockets faster to keep them in air longer. You can actually get more damage out of the Nitroglycerin Compound by running the bigger jet engine, as long as you're not just shooting in a straight line, if you're actually trying to curl your rockets around in air. Now, the rocket launcher has a ton of wacky modifiers. I'm not really great with the overclock that I currently have for the Hurricane. The Hurricane, unfortunately, did get nerfed into the ground, according to most longtime DRG players, on the last 2 updates. So I would like them to see them buff it a little bit, although I don't think that's going to happen. So, given that this is the last video in the series that I made, I did just put out 4 videos on the other 4 weapons. The strongest weapon for the primaries is the minigun. I'm throwing that in here right now. And the strongest weapon on the secondary is the revolver, but it depends entirely on personal preference. The only reason I say the minigun is it's actually reliable in any situation. It deals solid direct damage, high rate of fire, high ammo capacity, and you don't have to worry about reloading the gun as long as you can keep your trigger finger kind of steady. Both the autocannon and the rocket launcher have the ability to be good direct or area damage, but you have to build it a certain way. If you just want to come in and fire and play, go ahead and run the minigun.